probably going to be a tough day for attendance. The first day after Memorial Day. Watch it be our busiest day. Knock on wood. Workspace 5. Hey Jimmy, how are you today? Looks like you might be light for attendance day after Memorial Day here in the States. If you'd like to ask a question, please feel free. You can use the raise your hand thing, whatever it's called, and then we can unmute you and we can just chat about whatever questions you might have. No pressure as the only attendee. What do we got on? Yeah, it does appear that you are the. Oh, that's right. You can't see the attendee list. I shouldn't let you know. I should act like there's 100 people. But yes, you are the only person, and so far, hopefully there'll be a couple other people. You got any questions I can answer for you? If you want it, we can just chat back and forth. You don't need to type anything out. I was just assuming it might be a tough day after Memorial Day, after holiday here in the States. Okay, wonderful. Tyler, what are you working on? Man, any cool POCs? Oof, it's a tough day for me, Sabrina. This is where I need to make some terrible joke, and then Sabrina can back me up with a courtesy laugh.
I always will.
Yeah, please. You want to go ahead and you want to let him speak, Sabrina? Let Jimmy speak so we can ask a question about looping.
There we go. Okay, so whenever you upload, like you drag a file over into a file into a folder, it puts it as a document. But if you're in a flow and you save it, it saves it as a file reference.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to do a step that will, or a subflow that we can use as like a global flow, and so I've got this step where it's fetching the documents,
Okay.
and then going through for each document ID. I've got to get document data, adding it to the list.
Okay.
But now I'm trying to do the same thing for just the files, but it's giving me a headache on it's fetching the files, going through the loop. But when I'm trying to add it to the step, do I need another get document data type step for the file? Because it doesn't like the file data type. It wants it as that file reference.
Yeah, that's great. We actually do this. I'll find it in our internal system here. Let's see what we're using to do that. Support ticketing, email monitoring, designer entities, data types, tirade task. All right, so view attachments. Let's see. Upload attachment. What are we doing for that? Tag request. Maybe let's go look in flows. Let's find our main flow here. Create tickets. Create tickets from email job. I'm just trying to find a place where we do it because we do this in our support email job right now. So main ticket handler. I think we use load file from path to do this. Add email attachment as documents in folder. Okay. What is that doing? Create file references. Add file references. Okay, so here, so this, what we do is we get a list of attachments, and this is us load from file. I think this is the step we need here. So what are we doing here? For each takes in files, and files comes in to the start step, I believe. Yep. All right. So we pass in steps, we loop them, and then what do we get out of here? We get a file reference list. Okay. So in this flow, declare an empty list of file reference. Check to make sure it is not empty. If it's not empty, loop our file data array. Split string is interesting. Oh, this is some logic we added to try to not add duplicate files. String is in list is probably true, false. Huh, interesting. I think, yeah, you can disregard these 3 steps here. They're some specific pieces that looks like we were experimenting with. But then this is each file. So load file from path takes in file data, but you already have the file reference list, right?
Mhm.
So add file references as documents in folder. This takes the file reference list, and then it create entity from file reference. Yep. So file reference is each attachment folder ID, and this is the create entity. So we're creating a file reference entity, which is what you get when you use probably, if I had to guess, you're using one of our steps inside of flow management, right?
Well, I've got it's saving it just fine. I'm trying to fetch it back and so that I can use it in the form
Yeah,
as
so
a
let's see here.
download step.
File, we'll just do file reference, fetch. So let me get a file reference added. So I'll create a flow to do that real quick. So we're gonna put a file upload on my form here. Go to this, and the output type will be file reference. Right now, I'm just trying to create a file reference of my folder, just so I can have one. And now, if I look at flow management, data, add file references to folder. Question is, will this let me do it without a persistent folder? We'll find out here. So build array will select our file reference from our form, and we will specify a constant folder ID, which we will try to use the folder ID we are in now, which I'll just copy. I'll just steal from the URL there. Now, if I run this, all right, so I'll select a file, and I'll select a profiler. Okay. All right, so, okay, there's our file reference entity. So let's figure out how to fetch this thing. Now we should be in the state you're in right now, right? Where we're.
Yes.
So we do have file reference service. So let's see, if I use a fetch entity step, what does it give me back? I bet it doesn't give me the data back. File reference entity, and my criteria will be, I'll find the entity folder ID, and I'll specify that current folder. Now, what does this give me back? Okay, I get results. If I look at the output data, it gives me a file reference. And does that show, let's see, show form. And let's create a form. And this will be file download. I'll do multi. We don't have a multi-file download, do we?
Yeah.
Multi, let's see, file. Hey, look at that, multi-file download. Okay. This will be all file refs in current folder or something like that. The file output type will be file reference. File selectable internal. Yeah, it's been a while since I've built any forms with our file upload or download controls. Let's see. So this wants to take in a list of file references. And so what I probably want is all file reference.
Yep.
Okay. So let's walk back through what I did to get that to work. So if I look at what I did is use a fetch entity step. Now I'm set to file reference entity, which is an entity, basically an entity and a file reference slammed together so that a file reference can have a folder context. It can live like in your case or live in your process folder. And then I said fetch it by its parent folder ID, which I just made a constant ID. But if I look at inside a data explorer and I look at one of the file references, so if I expand entity results and come down to first, inside of file reference entity is a property for file reference. So we can see here, this first is file reference entity, but it has the actual file reference associated inside of it. And if you expand that, inside of this is the actual byte array for the file reference object itself. And so what I did is on the form, you see I pass in entity results, all file reference, not all file reference entity, not entity. So I'm actually dealing with the sub property list here in entity results instead of the file reference entity list.
So I don't need to go through each one and add it to a list. I can just send all files.
Yep. Yeah, you don't need to loop this at all.
But what if you're dealing with two different file types? So I think my initial problem was whenever you upload it manually, like you just drag it over and drop it, it makes it a document. So what I did is I fetched my documents, I did it through a for each, and then I've got a get document data step.
Yep.
That pretty much converts it into that file reference.
Okay.
And then I'm sending it back. So that I'm wanting to combine the two file types, the file reference data and the documents, into one list.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
So I'm able to convert the get document or the document into just file data, but I'm not able to yet to get the file reference data into file data.
Okay, so let's copy our fetch file reference flow here. I just added a document called this DR2, so I have one in each of these. So I have one of each type in here. Copy flow. We'll say fetch docs and file refs. So I'm gonna just turn both of these into a list of file data. So first things first, I'm gonna create data step and declare myself a list of file data. So this would be, converted files. And the list here will be file data and is list. So what I can do is, the first thing I can do is add items plural to list step here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this form because that won't work for us. And I'm going to take the file references and pass them into my list here as a group. So my original list is going to be select from flow converted files. And my new items is going to be select from flow, just like we did before, entity results, all file references, all file reference, all data. This should be the list of all of the data. all of the actual file data. And I'm going to then do on my output switches from rename to change value and also select converted files so I can update my list as I go through. So to confirm
So
that this,
throw all of them into a list without having to do a for each.
well, I
'Cause I'm
think we're
doing-
going to have to, I think we're going to have to loop for the document, but not for the
Okay.
file references.
I
So-
think that's where my problem is, because I got the document loop perfect. I'm just having trouble with the file reference. So I didn't need to get rid of my for each on the file and do add items to list.
Yeah, there's a plural one. You could pass them all in. And maybe the only sort of sticky point there is knowing where to map to. And here,
Yeah.
like I got any results, all file reference, all data. So let me confirm that this works real quick though.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it sends file names and everything and not just the actual content. So I'm going to kind of create a version of the form I just built. And this is going to be data files. And this is going to be multi-file download. But this one will be file data. This will be again, this will be all files, docs and refs. And I'll select my list. All right, so the one thing I have my, all right, so let's go ahead and see here. If I run this, daily snapshot, okay, wonderful. All right, that's great. So that part works, yeah. So, yeah, in fact, and if you're not looping, you don't need the create, you actually don't need the create data step. But if you're creating, if you're gonna combine the lists together, what I was assuming I was gonna do here, set a list, fetch my things, add them, and then I was going to use another fetch entities to fetch the documents, and then have a get document data, add item to list step in a loop. And it
Which
would,
I am doing for, yeah, that's what I'm doing for my documents. And then after the documents are looped through and added, now I'm going to add my files to that same list.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. That's my missing piece.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we make you have to think about the fact that we make it so easy for you to think about two different document types and how that can become, something to have to pay attention to. Should be, that's one of the places where too many options can make things more difficult than they probably need.
Yeah,
to be.
and the add item to step, it didn't like that file type, and no matter what I changed it to, so that's where I was hanging up. Awesome.
Let's see, and I don't think that I bet that's not configurable anywhere, but let's see, system settings, document module settings, audit document interaction, warn max versions to keep. Okay, we removed the ability to save it to the file system. What about portal settings? Is there a way to control this? I mean, you shouldn't have to care. Help documentation page, yeah. Import. Yeah, I don't think we give you the ability to control where that, if it adds as a document or a file reference when you do that drag, when you do drag and drop over, unfortunately. It does actually call out add as document.
Yep.
But yeah, we do usually add file references and not documents in our flows. And then I guess actually if you go into a process folder and does it add it as a document, or do I have any, did I create any process folders here? Oh, there's a case. So if I look at the activity view and I add, does this add a document? What does
It
this
adds a document.
add?
Yep.
Document, yeah, sure does. Yep. That's something for us to improve on for sure. I'll send a note to the product team, talk about this. This is probably something we should do better.
Hey, I love finding bugs.
Yeah.
Expert at that.
All right. Anything else got you stuck or that we can clarify
No, that's
for
all
you?
I'm working on today. So that helped me a lot. I've
Okay.
spent hours on this. So
Yeah, sorry about that. Glad we could help though. So
awesome.
Murray, did you have any questions today that we could help answer for you?
Today, I do not.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to have anyone else join with us today. So if there's nothing else to follow up on, we'll go ahead and call it a day. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.